Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of The Athletic Mind. For those of you who were not with us last week, if you missed the update, Lauren is unfortunately stepping away from the podcast as co-host, as she has a lot on her plate with coaching these days. And, it's really important to respect work-life balance. So we will definitely miss her, but the great conversations will continue on. And today we have special guest Heidi Kivimaa from Finland. Welcome to the show, Heidi. How are you doing?
Hi, thanks, Taylor. I'm doing really well. Thanks for having me.
No, thanks for joining to come on. A lot of people have a little bit of like stage fright, even though this is just a virtual phone call between me and you, and that's being published. So thank you so much for agreeing to be here. I think our topic today is like super important because we're going to be talking about brain health, especially in the world of hockey, as many of you know, very aggressive, very physical game. And if we are not taking care of our brain health, then we are unfortunately leaving our career up to chance. And there's so many other negative repercussions from not having that taken care of. So, Heidi, I will give you the floor to introduce yourself, share a little bit about who you are and how you came to be in this industry.
Yes, thank you very much. Hello to all the listeners as well. Really glad to be here. My name is Heidi Kivimaa, and I am from Finland. I'm the CEO and co-founder of the company called Northern Sports Inside Intelligence. And what we have created from the scratch is Act Head Impact Tracker, which is a measuring device for forces and impacts acting on a head while doing sports. My background, yeah, usually you're always somehow involved in sports when you're working in the sports industry. I used to play hockey myself. I was a goalie, probably not as good as Taylor but yeah, it definitely was one of the big loves of my life, ice hockey, that is. And I played for, I think, for 7 years or so and left on the top, or in Finland at least, on the elite level. But I never made it further than being fourth in the Finnish national with my team. But, so that was one part. So I was never good enough in that, so that I had to come up with something else to do and what could be better than actually trying to make a difference to how things are done in sports coaching and like everything that has to do with the sports in context of brain health and safety and well-being as well. So basically, I think that like if our mission is really to help the sport actors. So this means teams, clubs, coaches, trainers, and everyone involved with the athletes and who have a capability on making a difference to help to make if you're an athlete yourself, but so make it your, like in short, medium, and long term, just make things better so that you would have lower risk for traumatic brain injuries or these brain diseases like CTIs and dementias that can actually be contributed during your career of sports. So it's a big thing, and definitely we need everyone on board because there is a big mindset change first that has to be done. It's like, okay, so this is, we acknowledge that there is a problem. We like everyone needs to acknowledge that the problem exists, that they want to do something about it. They want to dedicate most of all some effort and time into how they can actually do things better. And that is where I hope that every one of you out there as well can do a little bit of that, like work in your respective teams and clubs, that things could start improve significantly, because they can be improved.
Mm-hmm.
I guess that was my intro, or
No, thank you so much for sharing. It's great. And I'd like to hear a little bit more about the actual impact sensor itself so the listeners can have a better understanding as to really how it works in real time and what differences are being made like you said, in the short, medium, and long term. So like impacts, how frequently they come, that kind of stuff.
Yeah. So if we start from, what is it? What's brain? We all know that, yeah, we have a brain, and we got a good understanding on what it is. But brain is actually our like operating system, and that's why it is a big. There's a big difference if something is happening to your brain, or if something happens to your ankle or so. So that's why these brain related incidents should absolutely be taken into like utmost seriousness. It is the most complex organ in our bodies, and for example, one of the things where we usually consider when something is wrong with anywhere in our body, we have pain receptors, so the pain is one of these nice indicators that we get, that your back, your wrist, whatever it is, that something is wrong. In your brain tissue, there is no such receptors, which means that if something is going wrong or happening in your brain, you don't get the signal, so you can't rely on that. Then there is something which is very important, is that a lot of times we talk about these impacts, but you don't need to have an impact. If you have a blow or a jolt which is violent enough, that's just as good and can cause you a traumatic brain injury or contribute to the brain diseases just as much. And that is because the problems are actually caused by not that something is tapping on your skull, but that your head is moving, because that head movement is making your brain tissue within your skull to move, rotate, and kind of I'm sorry, English is not my first language, so it's bounce inside your skull, and that is when these damages can be happening for your brain tissue. So it is about the head movement, and for this very same reason, you can't fix this problem by wearing a helmet. Helmets are great, always wear a helmet, but they are absolutely fantastic in securing you from the skull fractures, soft tissue damages, and of course most of them have some kind of technologies and materials that will help to absorb some of those forces, making your head move, or making it stop a little bit, longer period of time, which will help a little, but it's not fixing this problem, not at all. And same with the mouth guards. How would they stop your head from moving or using them? So they're great for teeth and gums and mouth protection and all that. But so we can't rely on these things, which a lot has been kind of referred to always as, okay, so these are going to fix the problem. No, they're not. They're part of the solution, but that's not enough. So so also one thing, that you can't really train your brain tissue to be more resistant, because it's actually working quite the opposite. So the more incidents or impacts or forces is acting on it, the worse it is. So you should try on aiming, lowering that level. So, like not having impacts, having lower magnitude impacts, and having them as far apart as they are, definitely always taking your time to heal in between the damages occurred there, and so on. So these are super important things. So if you think that you can just like bounce your head to the wall and make it more resistant, that's wrong. Do not do that. It's not going to work out. And then, like, so, like how easily we do get these, problems, either TBIs, so traumatic brain injuries, concussions, or are we the ones who are going to develop CTI or something because of this? There is a big difference between the groups, like most of the information, the research and everything that we see out there today is on adult male. And when we know already as of today that the traumatic brain injuries, for example, as females, we do get them more in the similar sports that we do with the men with the similar rules. They are usually having stronger symptoms, which last longer. So the recuperation is longer than with males. And then, of course, when we talk about youth and children in the sports, when your brain is still developing, I don't think anyone in, even in the medical community has a full understanding on how is that, developing brain having an impact on, like into this subject as well. So it's very important us as a females to kind of understand that for us, because of our gender, this is probably even more important than for men, because we have higher risk due to hormones, could be because of our physics, longer necks, not as strong neck muscles, like back muscles, shoulder muscles, and all these torso supports and things. Maybe we have inferior conditions where we play, or we don't invest so much money on our equipment, or we play in arenas where like the safety kind of gears like on the rink does not exist like they do in men. Or there can be and there probably is a lot of contributing factors to that, but that is why this matter should be so at our heart, and we have to demand for more to be done regarding that, to keep us safe and our brains healthy.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think you make a really great point when you're talking about children and youth in sport. And I think we've recently talked about this, that in somewhere in Canada, they've made it and you can't hit in hockey until the age of 16. And I mean, like you were saying, right, like the brain is still developing. So if we're introducing these hard hits at such a young age, then of course our kids are going to be more at risk, and like their entire future at risk if something goes wrong. And I think it's such a good thing that they've said that it's not going to be until the age of 16, because I think it was sooner than this before. But maybe it's even worth discussing, like extending that even further. But then it gets more into like the sports politics, I think, because we're starting to see so many young guys coming up to play at really high levels much earlier, now that the game is developing even further. But the reason I bring this up is because even when I was in high school, one of the guys that I knew who played hockey, he took a hit from behind, and he's lucky that he didn't completely like go paralyzed from the neck down. Like for a while he was, then he ended up going through a lot of like really heavy physiotherapy, had a neck brace for a really long time, and I don't know if he plays anymore. But like that's just in high school with the hitting that they were allowing. God, like 10 years ago, which is like crazy to think I was in high school 10 years ago. But it's also great that you mentioned the like physiological differences between gender, because that's another thing that I've talked with someone else about, who will hopefully be coming on the podcast in the future. But she's been studying like physiological differences between men and women for a long time, and looking at any sort of kinesiology book, it's always men that they have featured in these, because all the studies have been done on men rather than women. So of course there's major differences here, and probably a lot of things that we don't know yet as well. But you mentioned also the helmets, right? Like this is great so you don't crack your skull open. Of course, wear your helmet always, but it doesn't stop your brain from shaking around inside your skull, because you can't put cushions in there, right? And so it kind of brings up, for me at least, like, so what is the difference between sports in terms of these types of hits and magnitudes? Because in soccer or football, depending on where you live, this is, I don't know, like I would think if I'm smacking my face with the ball like repeatedly, that my head is definitely going to take a beating. But if you also look at hockey, the hits, especially in men's hockey, are obviously like bigger magnitude than hitting your head with the ball, I would think. So I was hoping to get your insights on this matter.
Absolutely. And thanks for, just putting those words out into, underlying some of these things. And one thing which is for everyone, again, very good to understand, is that, when we are going to improve things, there are a few things that we have to look into. This is exactly building into this soccer versus ice hockey, for example. So there is like 3 things that we have to pay attention to, and they are the 3 contributing things regarding the impacts and forces acting on the head. And these are number of these events. So how many do you get throughout your whole personal life or athlete career, or so that's one critical element here. Then number two is the magnitude of these impacts. So this means how hard the hit is, or how violent the forces are which are acting on your head. And then there is number three, which is the frequency and proximity of these events on the head, right? And all of these are quite different, but they're all contributing into the same things. So when we look at the number of events, this obviously is something that in soccer is an entirely different league, so to speak, because you do use your head for playing quite actively in many countries and many cases. So when you are heading a ball, that is, an event to your head, depending obviously a lot of things, like how far is it coming from, how fast pace does it come into, how well are you prepared to do that, how good of a technique you have, how good of a physical, physically prepared you are to do these things, and so on and so forth. Depends really like how big the magnitude of these events is. But I think that if we're just thinking about like one sport where you have the most events, so the number of events is the highest, it's probably going to be soccer. Like when we look at the players in on average. Then we come into the magnitude, which is like one event with magnitude high enough, you can get the TBI, the concussions, and all of these things, right? So the dynamics is more into traumatic brain injury development. You can get that from one incident only, if the magnitude is high enough. In hockey, this is the more typical thing that, let's think about, you get tackled in the middle of the field and you just fall down, and you hit your head on the ice. It's super hard. So, that is a quite typical event for ladies, for example, that I've seen from our experience and the data that we have collected. Those may have very high magnitudes in them. So that is a potential for concussion development, for example. Same with, if you get tackled on the rink and you hit your head, you can even have that multiple times, and so on and so on. So these are like more of a hockey incident. So in hockey, definitely less in numbers, but higher in magnitude than in soccer, for example. So, this is like the dynamics, which are very different from sport to sport. Then about the frequency and proximity. So obviously, when we have, like, say in European football, soccer, if we are talking about that, any given practice, a player can get something like from 10 to say 25 events on a head, but maybe their magnitude is around about between 10 and 25 G forces, for example. And then in hockey, it may be that you don't get any in a practice, but you go into a game, you get tackled, and you get something which is well beyond 100. So this is this is just a picture of these two games. But then the frequency is much higher in football. However, the proximity is something which we would need to be very, very careful with in hockey. And proximity means that there's a second impact syndrome, which means that if you go back to the game, when you have had even a mild concussion, mild TBI, and you're not recuperating, you're not ready to go. You think you are, but there is still some kind of fixing going on in your brain which should take place. You go in, you get another one, and you might get a second impact syndrome, which might be, it has high mortality rate, and there is a really high chance that you will have lifelong lasting consequences from that. And it is completely possible to avoid it. Mm-hmm. Because if you just don't go back there before you are ready to go. So when a medical professional has cleared that, yes, you are recovered, you don't have this anymore, you're good to go back. You should always wait for this. Always have this check, and never ever, take any chances with that. So it is 100% avoidable, but this is what you have to do. So the proximity of of two concussions, for example, is, this can be definite for your health and well-being for the rest of your life.
Mhm.
So as you can see, it's like we kind of think that there isn't like many things that we should be aware of, but of course, it's not that easy. You say, I'm going to go into the box and I can't control what's going to happen to me in the box, because there is a lot of players and that's when we play and all that. But there's still a lot of things that you can do, because there is like these three factors that and you really have to think about not just now, but throughout your whole career. Because there is a very, very strong cumulative nature to this. Like when we have heard that there is now hockey players with the CTIs and stuff, that is something that the number of events and the magnitudes together combined, that's what is very relevant, for example, into these kind of a more brain disease, a little bit like maybe not now, but in 5 years, 10 years, 20 years, even 30 years from now. But all of that, what's being put in action and what's starting all this negative consequences is contributing into this brain disease development is done now in the pitches throughout your whole sports career. And that is why we have to be acting now. Mm-hmm. So that in that 10 years, 20 years, or even later on in your life, you're not getting those irreversible damages, which will start showing as Alzheimer's, Parkinson's, CTI, dementia, for example.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think it shouldn't really come as too big of a surprise that some hockey alum are showing the CTI signs, because I mean, the game is continuously developing. It's getting faster. The hits are getting harder. And I think we're seeing, just look at the news recently, like a lot of really freak accidents happening on the ice these days as well. And so like, it's very important to protect yourself, not just so you have a longer sport, but so you can also enjoy life after sports too. Because the mean age for most hockey players is until mid-30s, maybe late 30s, early 40s. If you're lucky, you might get a little bit further than that. It's a very physical game. It's very exhausting, very tiring for the body. So we have to be able to make sure that we're doing what we can for ourselves and for coaches to do what they can for their athletes and their teams to make sure that they're protected and that they have an opportunity to enjoy a long career and also to enjoy life after that career has finished, right? And so from you, what are some ways that are the coaches who invest in these technologies for their athletes, for their teams, what is it that they can be doing with that data to better equip their players to play smart?
Good question. And these coaches who will do these improvements is actually exactly the people that all of us, we need to convince them that this is something that has to be done. But there is definitely, a lot of things involved into this. One is decrease the number of events. Of course, this is, again, something that is easier done in football if you put some numerical restrictions on headings than in ice hockey, where there is less events, for example. But nevertheless, we should always consider number of these events, and try to put that down. Then there is the magnitude. So there's lots of things contributing to this, like how high the force is, how violent these forces are, or these impacts which are acting in these, the forces acting in these impacts. But you can definitely do things to be better prepared, because yes, it is very true. You can't always not or prevent them from happening, but you have a lot of things that you can do in order to be better off in those situations as well. You should improve the techniques in these events, which are typical in hockey, which have, are featuring forces or impact acting in a head. Could be giving a tackle, receiving a tackle, any kind of action by the rank side. It could be falling downs. It could be, if we don't even know what these are, then we absolutely have to start by looking into what are these events in respective, like female versus men, juniors, age groups, recreational elite and everything. And I have to say that that's probably where the whole sport is. We don't have this information exactly, but that's where we should start, and then focus on the techniques training the way that we can do it now. It's not just, like how we've done it before, but now we can actually measure how do you use your body and your posture, how do you hold your head and everything, so that we can see that there is less magnitude on your head, less movement to your head. So, which is, going to be the new way of teaching the techniques in this situation. So that is definitely one thing. Then you can improve your physics and like to be better prepared for these kind of events. And there is a lot of different things. You can have certain muscular groups and things that you have to improve, some of them that you don't even know about as of today, which will play a relevance here. You definitely kind of need to control your whole kind of body in order to support your posture and everything in these situations. About your speed and how agile you are, it plays some kind of a role here as well. About the balance, and then like how your eyes are following these things. So how well are you prepared in a different way? So these vestibular systems, for example, that they call. So there is many physical things that you can also, and you should also be training in a complete different way and intensity that you do today, so that you will be better off when something happens. Then obviously some players are at higher risk because of your play style, because of your position that you play, because your physics, or whatever the reason. So the coaches can, when they get the information on the whole team, or even if there's like a club, and you can even compare the different teams, the data between the different players and different teams, they will be able to see who's getting more in number, who's getting bigger in magnitude, for example. And then those are the people at the highest risk, and that's where they should start looking into breaking that down. Why is that? Then you have some events, you got some drills, you got like, where is the risk? And this is just what they see in the data. So when are these things happening, to whom, why, when, So this is what they would need to understand, and then start looking into those things which are posing the highest risk for one individual or to whole team, and they should be addressed. Adjust the drills, like how you're going to put them, throughout the season, practicing certain things, and so on and so on. And obviously also players, out there on the pitch, we can do pretty bad damage for other players or ourselves based on the decisions, the not very clever decisions that we make on the pitch. So also that should reflect on the risk that, that there is. So we should also change the attitude a little bit over there, which is probably best done when we create the awareness for this fact. We make everyone understand, what is their role in creating these situations and potentially damaging, other people, or causing them lifelong problems and health concerns, and what is it that they could do better so that these could be minimized. So it definitely is, a pool of things, many things, soft things, harder things that, I think that also referees should be much harder on things, like what are causing these head impacts, and all that. So there's many different sports actors here who could play a difference and make a difference and do and contribute into this matter. But the key is that every single one of us, every single one of the players, coaches, team personnel, they can do this. Yeah, they can do their share.
Yeah, everybody has a role to play, and that goes for, whether you're talking about your own personal development, the team development, or just overall. And so I know that you have to run, so I'm gonna quickly wrap up here, but I just wanted to first of all emphasize that this is preventative and proactive for brain health and for mental health for athletes. So coaches, I know I said this so many times before, but I'm very much like an athlete center coaching advocate. I know that this is something that's really going to help your athletes be safer in their game, and also maybe also like help them to develop some different skill sets that will not only keep them safe, but help them to grow as an athlete as well. And so, Heidi, thank you so much for coming on today. I really, really appreciate it. And I think this is really great information for all the listeners. So before you go, can you please just leave some of your contact info here for people if they would like to learn a little bit more?
Absolutely. Would it be possible to actually write them somewhere in the podcast if I would
Yeah,
send it
I'll
over
put
to
them in
you?
I'll put them in the show
Yeah.
notes. Yeah.
Yeah, so that would be awesome. So our website is www.act dash, is this dash? And then tracker.com. So you can find more information and pictures on the products and, some descriptions and services and so on and so on. And please, if you're in LinkedIn, I would love to hear from you. My name is Heidi Kivimaa. So HeidiKivmaa. I would love to hear from you. Please reach out over there. And also, Taylor, thank you so much for having me over. Thank you so much for working with me. And I think that we all want to make things better. So please join us for absolutely, asking, bringing out the word and making a difference so that we could all enjoy having healthier, happier rest of our lives and ensure that there are children, will have it better than any of us have today, because there's certainly a lot that could be and should be done better. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Heidi. It's great to have you, and we'll see you again soon.
Thank you. Thanks. Bye.
Ciao. All right, that was Heidi Kivimaa. Thank you again for joining on the podcast. Lots of really great information here, not just for athletes, but also for coaches. So please, if you care about your players' head health, brain health, and their safety, go check out act-tracker.com to learn a little bit more. And as always, a big thank you to all our listeners who support every single week and continue to come back and listen. So thank you guys so much. If you could kindly follow us on whatever platform that you listen to us on, that would be great. And also leave us a 5-star rating. Now, for those of you who want to learn more about mental performance coaching, you can head over to my website, www.taylor-minds.com, and you can learn more about how mental performance coaching can help you improve your game, whether you're an athlete or a coach. So until next week, I will see you guys later.